Welcome back, everybody. You got Will and I, man, here from the Block Runner, and today we're going to go back to the roots and talk about DeFi.
Oh yeah.
So this goes
The
back.
roots, dude. I think that's exactly correct. The roots, why? Because this is what started it all, dude. Like
Yeah.
this cycle at least. So
Yeah, so let's go back. Let's go back kind of, I would say, 2 years or so, 2.5 years, where we first got interested in DeFi by Maker and Dai, and like this yield of getting like 8% at the time. And then it went as high as 15%. We're like, dude, all we need to do is make about 100K, and then we can kind of live off of that in DeFi. It's like no big deal, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what initially excited us. And we were tracking this chart here. Let's go to all day. Let's go to all time. And when we first looked at it, it reached 1 billion, and then it hit 2 billion. We're like, oh, this is it. And sort of kind of tapered off, and then obviously took off to up to 100 billion total value locked. And so this is what they use to measure, I guess, the retention of people using DeFi. And so this is kind of how we got started into like the whole DeFi space. And now we're going to talk about like where it's at. Should we be investing? Like all that stuff.
Yeah, it's important because DeFi has been pretty quiet over the last, I think, 6 to 8 months. While NFTs is kind of like taking over the main stage narrative in the crypto space, DeFi has kind of had to take a back seat, because I mean NFTs it's doing a lot in the sense NFTs is bridging the mainstream gap, right? Which is what the whole premise to like NFTs were in the first place. It's easier to understand.
Yep.
More people are interested in it. Finance, it's like a very small segment of people even understand what finance is about, or give a fuck what finance is about. So, but it doesn't matter. Even though there's such a small segment of people who get it, like finance runs the whole damn show, right? So it's important. Like no matter
it's so
what.
important. I mean, in the context of this war that we have going on with Russia and Ukraine, they're putting a bunch of sanctions on Russia to try to curtail this invasion that's happening. And even though it's being relatively effective now, maybe tomorrow or in the future, Russia sanctions aren't going to do anything because they're going to be on, decentralized finance where they can send Bitcoin or any other crypto to any other country or company, and they can continue on, with or without sanctions. And so this is why DeFi space is so important, because this is the future, right? This is it. We're looking at it. And
we were talking about it off camera. Like, you got to come to like an agreement first off, like whether or not we should be talking about DeFi again, because it's been quiet. And then once we show you guys the charts here, it's pretty much like in like a death zone. If you're a DeFi holder, you're probably in deep despair today. So it's like, is it worthy of talking about? So you got to come to like that initial agreement that whether or not DeFi is like a fad in the crypto industry, right? Like it came and it went and it'll never come back.
Yeah.
We don't need a decentralized financial infrastructure. It has no use case in this world. If you think that, then this video probably means nothing to you. If you do subscribe to the idea that decentralized finance is critical, if you think just like Bitcoin is enough, like as a tool to like foster, financial activity in the future, we don't need all these protocols and stuff like that to do all this transacting or and lending and shit. And then if you believe that it's staying power, then you need to be paying attention to the charts of today, because there's a lot going on.
And I think one of the most famous DeFi projects is Synthetics. And I just want to give you an example of the performance of Synthetics over the last couple of years. It peaked around February 2021, and then since then, it's just nothing but despair. And however, I mean, if you believe in like synthetic tokens and basically the biggest sector in the finance like space is synthetic leverage trading. So I mean, if you believe in that, then Synthetics is a good reason. I mean, to get into it. Like if you just look at the charts and you believe in this whole sector. Like now is the time to be paying attention to DeFi, right? February 2021, when it did 100x, that's not the time to be like getting into synthetics, right? But
that was the time to be cautious.
Now with 85% from its all-time high, then now it's time to take a look at it. But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, when you look at the top 100 coins by market capitalization, it mirrors Bitcoin almost exactly. I mean, I just showed you two different charts, and they look exactly the same.
Yeah, which is surprising because after looking, like if you look through a lot of these DeFi blue chips individually, it looks much more
bleak
and gloomy than what this like overall market capitalization chart represents. So there's probably some outliers in here that somehow are keeping it up. You know, like Uniswap maybe is one. You know, Uniswap is kind of like a ubiquitous service.
No, I mean, it's down 77%. So that's not
pretty
nothing.
Significant too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, 77%, 85%. I mean, you could go down the list. Basically, anything on DeFi Pulse, anything you see here is down 70% at least.
But what's interesting, though, is like, you look at this TVL chart, like it doesn't reflect that. You would expect if the valuation of this ecosystem as a whole is like going through this correction phase, like a mass, like if you look at these charts, it looks like there's a mass exodus going on, right? Like you would expect the TVL to fall off a cliff too. Like, oh, the valuation of these tokens is dumping, so why should I lock up my tokens and utilize these platforms or these services? Well, they are. It's actually like
it's hanging in
a pretty healthy looking chart. Like it looks like the DeFi space as a whole really hasn't suffered. Like as far as like an operating like service, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if this was like a traditional bank's like performance chart, like as far as like think of TVL as like customer acquisition. Like you're getting more and more customers locking up funds into your bank portfolio.
Yeah.
This is a fucking incredibly successful organization, you know, like, this looks great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And in the grand scheme of things, about 100 billion is a medium-sized bank.
Yeah.
So this is, we're still early days, right? So,
this is everything combined too, right?
This is everything. Yeah. So you're right. So let's take a step back. So we looked at some crypto projects. They've taken a 70% hit, but in the grand scheme of things, total value locked hasn't seen that 70% dip, right? Maybe we won't see it. Maybe we will. Like time will tell. But the most important thing to realize is that even though these prices have taken a hit, like you're saying, you still locked up tokens, right? You still have customers locking up their money, right, with these protocols. So that's a strong signal for this potential resurgence to come back at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
then the question becomes like, what is it that's going to inverse this sentiment for DeFi as a whole, I guess, as a sector? We got some macroeconomic things, I guess, like at our advantage, like you were just explaining earlier, the whole Russia situation, potentially, we have more inflationary like repercussions that are going to hit the real world markets pretty soon. People are going to start to lose faith in the traditional finance sector over time. These narratives might help support like a new resurgence to the DeFi space potentially, right? Because again, like it's so easy for the public to understand NFTs, right? Like there's not much explanation needed, dude. They're fucking pictures. You can own these little monkeys and these fucking gargoyles, whatever the hell. And you can flip them for money. Like there's not much education needed, but as soon as like everyone's traditional finance understanding like becomes like front and center, it's like how come everything I buy is like way more expensive? How come my bank account is like being drained bloody by gas and like everything? Yeah. All of a sudden finance starts to become like an important narrative. And then I think DeFi can kind of like, leverage that to be front and center again. You know what I mean? Yeah,
I was just thinking when you were, going through your dialogue there was that how crypto makes everybody like an economic sort of expert. Like you start learning about
expert. Yeah.
You start learning about like, oh, now countries are starting to affect the markets, and like all of a sudden you're getting into this like space that you wouldn't otherwise get into because now you have money into it. And so this whole DeFi space is that it forces you to educate yourself on what is actually valuable, and like these centralized systems, all these sanctions that are happening with Russia, like all of that stuff is literally a thing of the past. There are no more sanctions that could be had on any of these protocols because that's the whole point of this, is that it's decentralized finance.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually people would mature and understand the value of these things. And you would expect, eventually a multi-trillion-dollar lockup, right, TVL for all of DeFi to be coming pretty soon. I mean, like Russia should be just dumping their entire currency into DeFi if I were there.
Mm-hmm. Which that announcement could be around the corner. We don't know.
Yeah.
It could be like Russia just decided to. I mean, it probably will start with Bitcoin more than likely, some kind of like huge Bitcoin acquisitions. Like, that seems to be a good way to. It's not widely understood, but I think one of the best ways to kind of stick it to the West, and especially the traditional finance world, is to just buy more Bitcoin and leverage the Web3 version of finance.
I mean, Bitcoin is at $41,500, up 10% today. I mean, that's pretty huge.
Yeah, you know what? Now we could just. I wouldn't be surprised to hear these kind of announcements, from Russia, just as a potential catalyst, because not only DeFi needs a catalyst, right? So we've established DeFi and Bitcoin price movement is pretty much neck and neck. So DeFi most likely won't surge again until Bitcoin does.
Yes,
that's what the charts tell us.
Yeah.
So then, we kind of do need to discuss what the hell is going to get Bitcoin moving again, because it's kind of hard. Like, there's been so much FUD, and it seems like it's already like hit like mass awareness. Like everybody's aware of crypto, Bitcoin, and NFTs. So like, what is that next leg up to get us to a $300,000?
We've talked about it in the past. It's countries getting in.
Yeah, it is countries, big countries. You know,
but you know what? I expected countries to go in after several companies going in. After we have like the Michael Saylors and the Elon Musks saying that they're adding Bitcoin to their portfolio, then you're going to have several more companies come in, and then all of a sudden the next cycle, that's when like countries, like big countries, start going in.
Yeah.
So
I think that's very likely. I think we're going to hear something. I mean, this is pure just
speculation,
gambling speculation, but I'm trying to think what is it that's going to galvanize interest all over again for Bitcoin. It could be nothing. It could just be like you say, Bitcoin has like a mathematical rhythm to it, like it's already like pre-designed by Satoshi and friends, like from the very beginning. That's like almost like unavoidable, like because of the math. Like it doesn't really necessarily need much external like
forces,
influence, right? It's just kind of like this circadian rhythm to it. It just follows the law of mathematics, right?
Yeah.
It could be that, but me, I don't believe in that. I think like human pressure has like way more. I don't know.
I think you're right, though. I mean, ultimately, there are forces out there that it's going to encourage people, in this case, countries, namely Russia, to get into decentralized currencies. I mean, if technically you can do sanctions against Russia from a financial standpoint, and you can constrict their ability to interact with companies in other countries, you can't do that with Bitcoin. You can't do that. So
that can't be like understated enough, because like that's such a big deal. Like you know way more about this than me. Maybe we'll have like a full length podcast discussion about this. I think we should.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, how the hell Swift came to be? What the hell is it? How is it like a global organization that could just flip the doom switch on a country? You know what I mean? It just completely remove you from like the world's economic, infrastructure. To me, that's wild. But like you're saying, if there's any country with the right incentives to kind of like fully adopt Bitcoin and DeFi, it's definitely Russia in this moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, having said that, I mean, FBI, remember there was this couple that hacked one of the exchanges. They stole like, I don't know, thousands of Bitcoin, and then they got caught because they started moving the money, and then the FBI followed that money. Well, you could blacklist addresses that are connected to Russia, and all of a sudden you could sort of kind of track like where the money's going, and if that money hits some sort of company, then that company's blacklisted and so forth for working with Russia. So there's ways that you can kind of manage, Russia's influences, even though, it's on Bitcoin. But you can't stop Russia from actually transacting, right? That's the difference. So, but you're right. I mean, I think Russia, they have to be looking at Bitcoin right now. They have to.
And I think everybody too, just because this is just an example, right? That I mean, I think if you were to poll every planet on Earth, I think you'd see like a 95% in support of this specific action from like whatever the global consensus network of Swift is.
Yeah,
like it was a very needed action. But like you said, you know, just because in this case it was for a good, I guess, like doesn't like it opens itself up to like
a slippery slope. Now it
collusion and stuff like this, right? Like,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, slippery slope. Yeah, like it.
Yeah, and not only that. So we keep talking about Russia, but most importantly, there are people that are completely innocent in Russia that are against whatever Putin's doing, and so those people are getting hit right now. The Russian currency took a 30% hit yesterday, and so I mean that's a big deal. Imagine your bank account going down 30% all of a sudden, right? And so they're more likely to start looking into Bitcoin as well.
Yeah, 1,000%, just to secure their own assets, right?
Absolutely.
Secure their wealth.
Yeah, same thing. Same goes for basically everybody on the planet. They're starting to recognize these things, right?
Yeah.
Especially with inflation and all this stuff that's happening. Like you can't deny the value of Bitcoin anymore.
Not just deny it, but at least like begin to like think about it, like as from a normal person perspective. Like now,
yeah, exactly.
You got to consider these things because, like I said, like your day-to-day life, like from a financial perspective, is about to be hit, like across the board. That wasn't the case for the last 10 to 12 years.
Yeah.
You know, we lived in a pretty much like a state of like constant like
growth,
artificial growth and like security, right? But those days are part of the past. And there's like so much shit going on, like a perfect storm is brewing from a macro sense. Like, I think everyone's going to start to feel it. Everyone's going to start to ask these questions.
Yeah.
Bitcoin and DeFi, like I said, the time for them to seize that stage and like,
I totally agree.
Be proponents of that narrative is like, it's on the horizon. Right. So having said all that, take a look at the charts, find your blue chips, and we're going to do that. Actually, we're going to make a lot more videos about the DeFi space all over again, because we need to check in on these projects and see what the hell they've been up to over the last year. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So this is a great webpage, DeFiPulse.com. It basically tracks all of the DeFi projects, the top 100 at least. And so we're going to go through all of them. So we've already gone through some of them, and we're going to go through them again just to see what updates that they have, whether or not it makes sense to invest in these, like at least from our personal perspective. Like, we like to do this fundamental analysis just for ourselves, and we like to confirm, and have conviction in whatever we do, right? And so, we like doing this stuff, and so we're definitely going to go deeper into a lot of these that we think are solving big problems. So stay tuned for that. One thing we're going to do is we're going to get together for a podcast, and I want to have a deeper discussion with you, Iman, about like all of what's happening with Russia, the implications of what's going on over there in terms of cryptocurrency. And I want to see what you think in terms of like this big perfect storm that's happening. Like, it's just growing, dude. It's been growing for the last 2 years, or two and a half years since we started the podcast. And like at some point you're going to be right. At some point, everything stock market, like there's going to be a complete crash like we've never seen.
Yeah.
And so stay tuned for that lovely discussion. It's nothing but blue skies on that one.
Exactly how I like it, dude. Yeah, that should be interesting, man. We tend to do these at least once or twice a year, you know, just because like I even do this in like my own personal friend group. I like to take a snapshot of like the S&P 500, like overall, like chart. Like it just looks like the biggest bubble ever made.
Yeah.
So I just like to remind everybody, like just a reminder, we're in like the everything bubble.
Yeah.
A plan accordingly, because when things go up, like they come down much more aggressively.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Just be aware, everybody.
Yeah. All right, so that has been a discussion on DeFi and what's been going on in relation with Bitcoin and the invasion in Ukraine that's happening right now. Hopefully, everyone's managing that situation. Make sure you stay tuned to what we're going to be talking about next. We have a lot of DeFi talk, obviously a lot more metaverse talk coming up. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at The Block Runner and also at MetaZone.io. And we will catch you in the next video.
Peace.